Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at inclusive design and human factors that can affect the design process. So first of all, what do you need to know? So what the terms ergonomics and anthropometrics mean. Now we have covered that earlier in a different video, so that there's a lot of things here that sort of overlap in a few different ways. So how ergonomics can influence designers, what the term inclusive design means, how products can be adapted for disabled users, and how key information is gathered during the design phase. So as I said, some of this stuff we've already covered, so things like ergonomics, anthropometrics we've covered in previous videos, but this is very much how is that taken and applied properly in the design process to then meet the needs of the users that are going to be using these products. So first of all, just sort of like a who's who of inclusive design. So there's a couple of like big players in the design industry that do a lot of this work. So people like the Helen Hanlon Centre. So I'll leave that link on there for you, and I'll put it down in the video below as well. But they do a lot of research around it, so they don't necessarily design products themselves. What they'll do is they'll do a lot of the actual field research, and then they'll like outsource designers to come and like, okay, this is the research we've done, and then they'll get designers to come and take that research and then design that based on the research they've completed. The Rod Industrial Design, Seymour Powell, and Alloy Total Production Design. So there are a lot of other companies that do inclusive design. This is by no means an exhausted list, but these are just some of the big people that do it. Seymour Powell are a huge design company, and you probably will use their things on a daily basis without really realizing it. So they've done things like they redesigned the Lynx deodorant can that like twist to make the top come out. They did that. Things like their Felix cat food packaging, the Virgin Galactic spaceship they've done, the bullet train. So they've done an awful lot of designs, not necessarily just inclusive, but they're a very, very big design firm. So adaptive products. So basically with inclusive design, what you're trying to do is you're not trying to make completely new products. Sometimes you're just trying to make it so people can use products that everyday people can use, just with slight adaptations. Because what you're trying not to do is alienate your clientele, your users, because they don't want to feel like any more different. Obviously, if someone needs an adaptive product, they are aware that they are slightly different, whether that's because they have a limb difference, so they're missing fingers, like arms, that sort of thing, or if they are a little bit older and they've got arthritis, they're already aware that they can't do certain things. So you then don't want to make it glaringly obvious because they've got to buy something completely different. So it's nice if you can make a product that can just be adapted slightly to make it more suitable for them. So the link here, so I'm going to open it. I'm not going to play the whole video, but what I will do is I will have it, again, I'll link it at the bottom of the video. So you find what here, and this to me is like a perfect example of what design should really be about. So this is a camera stabilizing technology used in Parkinson's cutlery. So what you can see is obviously Parkinson's, you have like tremors, muscle spasms, so you can't really control what you're doing. What this camera lets you do, and it's not a new technology at all, but it will stabilize. So obviously things like eating become quite difficult on your own, so you might have to eat aided. So what it will do is it will counteract the actual tremors so that food will stay on cutlery. So I'm not going to play the whole video, I'll put that on the link below. But that is sort of a perfect example of a product that's been adapted to make it suitable for a different need. Now there can be loads of it. It could be just making grips fatter so that it's easier for someone with arthritis to grip it, because obviously if they've got limited movement in their knuckles and their fingers, they can't grip things quite small, so having bigger grips make it easier, and just like bigger leverages for people that need to try and open things. So there's a huge amount of ways that you can adapt existing products to make them suitable for users. So there are loads of different case studies. So this is from the Helen Hanlon Centre. So if you were to look at this, who do you reckon this is going to be aimed at really? So there's a couple of different answers to that. So one, it would be obviously people that are with visual impairments. So maybe their eyesight isn't great, they haven't got full vision. That's why you have a bit numbers a lot bigger. There's also the instance it might be a case of someone that's like a technophobe, so they're like quite worried about using modern technology, because they're a little bit older, they're sort of like, oh no, that scares me. So you simplify it. So you take, obviously phones, everyone has a phone now, but you've got to how can you adapt it to make it more suitable for someone. So things like making buttons bigger, bolder so you can see it. There is instance now with your phone where you can make the text on your phone a lot bigger, so it can be more visible. You can make it so that you can have the different colours on the background, so the text and the background can be different colours to play if you've got like some visual cues to make it easier. If anyone has dyslexia, and you might have been given the option to have different colour overlays on text and like in exams to make it easier to read. So all of those are just different examples of case studies of how things have been adapted to make it easier. A big one, and they always like to use it, is things like kettles. Obviously most people like hot drinks, tea, coffee, hot chocolate, that sort of thing. And it's always a good example to use because, like I say, a lot of people do use them. But if you think about it in terms of, it puts quite a lot of weight, the stress on your wrist, on your hand, on your forearm. And if you are weaker, whether that is through impairments, whether it's through age, arthritis, anything like that, it becomes quite difficult. So having different ways of making it easier to do. So obviously, hopefully you can make out these images, just making sure the way you're making it is that you're not holding it a lot longer, it's all, you're just filling it up, and the idea is that you're not putting that kind of stress on your own wrist. So how this information is gathered, now we talked about this a little bit when we did ergonomic anthropometrics, but focus groups are a really big part of it. So as we talked about when you how do you gather information, so we talked about the design process as a theory. And there was things like, well, you can ask questionnaires, you can do surveys, that sort of thing. And those are good. But sometimes the best thing to do is to just witness someone doing a task. So obviously, in this instance, so we'll stick with the kettle idea, you get a range of people, like different demographics. So you might have people that are a little bit older, you might have people that have got arthritis, some people that have got like limb differences. Get like a wide range of people as possible. And in this instance, they've literally got 3 or 4 different kinds of kettles, put them in front of them and say, okay, just make me a drink, make yourself tea, make yourself coffee, and just witnessing what they're doing and getting them to talk through it with you is a really, really good way to find out what the issues are, because they might not be able to express it properly, because they might not necessarily know, but if they're doing it, that's when you can pick up and, okay, so you can't quite pick that up, okay, you can't reach those buttons because that's a bit too tight, and those are the kind of cues that you can look for. And then this is the example that then, I think this was Helen Center. So this was basically the concept they came to redesign it, so actually you're not having to pick up a full kettle, because a full kettle can be quite difficult even for a fully fit and healthy person. And then other products, things like vacuum cleaners. So making sure, again, if you think about how many people do the vacuum cleaning, whether you do that at home, whether your parents do it, your carers do it, whoever, well, it's something that most households or households end up doing. And if you think about it, it's quite a lot of pressure on one side of the body. You've got to hold it all with one hand. So how can you make it a little bit easier? So making sure like you've got different handles so that you can grab it a little bit easier. It takes the weight, it disperses the weight across multiple limbs instead of just being all pressured on one part of the body. So you'll hear again this term user-centered design. So we did talk about that in the design process theory. So that's just the whole term given, the design philosophy of the end user is used in that whole process of designing it. You don't just come up with a project, go off and start designing and making it, don't talk to anyone, at the end of it you come out with a product. The whole point of user-centered design is you have them involved in the whole design and development process, because you can constantly get feedback. So that's where you'd make your prototype, like you'd wrap a prototype in from 3D printing or making models, and you keep going back to the client, okay, another focus group, try and use this, how do you find this handle? Okay, does that button, is it easy to reach? How heavy is that? And that whole process means at the end of it, you'll have a much better quality and easier to use product. So, a couple of questions for you to go through. So, what does term ergonomics mean? What does term anthropometrics mean? 4 ergonomic facts to consider when designing a product. Now, we haven't covered that in this area, but we did cover that in the ergonomics video, so I'm having to try and get you to recall what those 4 main ergonomic factors were, what the 5th to 95th percentile is, what the actual people below the 5th percentile, those above the 95th percentile, what the term inclusive means, and then can you give me 2 examples of how a product can be adapted to make it more inclusive. So, pause the video, have a get around to those, and once you've done it, if you unpause the video and we'll go through it. So, term ergonomics simply is how a client interacts with a product. So that's like handles, drawers, those sort of things. Anthropometrics, that's the study of measurements of the human body. So the 4 ergonomic factors, those are colour, light, sound, and comfort. 5th to 95th percentile, so that's the average. If you sit within the 5th to 95th, you're the average. The majority of the population and things are designed for you. Who sits below the 5th, the very small, very skinny, whatever it may be. Above the 95th, those are the very big. What does the term inclusive design means? That's when a product design make it accessible for a wider audience than just the 5th to 95th. Make sure you get used to using these terms of 5th to 95th percentile, because like I say, everyone, like most people in college, you sit within the 5th to 95th percentile. It's a smaller percent of people, obviously, that sit from the 0 to 5, or the 95th to the 100th. But if you sit in that 5th to 95th, everything is made for you. If you're doing inclusive design, you're trying to make it broader. You're trying to make it for as many people as you can. And then examples of products. So I gave you 2. You had like the kettle, you had the vacuum cleaner. It could be anything. It could be like tin openers, stairs, door frames, like handbrakes for driving. So there's loads and loads of different things. You just got to think what are the issues that might be involved with it, and how could you adapt it. If you've got any questions, please send me a message either via Teams or via email, and I'll get back to you.